One morning, I woke up to a scream. My wife had literally just screamed in fear, seeing this goat-headed figure that was standing in front of the door. I had woken up and seen this giant shadowy mass that was standing in front. But my wife was just sitting there just trembling in fear. And the next thing you know, it said,
"I want to make a deal with you. You let me stay, and I will give you fortune. I will give you wealth as long as you let me stay."
This is God's Voice Daily, where ordinary people share the moment everything changed. They weren't looking for the supernatural, but it found them. Out-of-body experiences, encounters with darkness, visions of heaven, moments that felt more real than life itself. Every day, you'll hear raw, unfiltered calls from people around the world who can't explain what happened, only that it did. And no matter how wild their story sounds, each one points back to Jesus. If you've ever felt like there's more going on than what we can see, you're in the right place. And now, here's today's featured call. Enjoy. Looks like you had a rough night one night long time ago when a tall shadow being, right, with it's like goat's head stood in front of your room, called on your hidden sins and tried to make a deal with you. What happened? Tell me.
So this took place about 7 years ago, around the time where I met my wife. It was late one night. Prior to this, kind of giving a little story beforehand, my daughter had started noticing that there were shadows moving around in our condominium. I never noticed anything, but, you know, when she had moved in, she started noticing little things happening. When my wife, well, girlfriend at the time, now wife, had moved in, we started experiencing, you know, something feeling ominous in the house. And then one morning, I woke up to a scream. My wife had literally just screamed in fear, seeing this goat-headed figure that was standing in front of the door. I had woken up and seen this giant shadowy mass that was standing in front. And there was a smoke detector that had a green light above the door. I mean, this thing was covering that. I couldn't even see the light. It was just so dark. I had turned on the light and, you know, everything had like dissipated. But my wife was just sitting there just trembling in fear, but she could still see it. And the next thing you know, my wife is saying, like, it's speaking. It's telling me things. It's telling me certain things about myself. My phone started glitching. And next thing you know, like, it started removing things out of my phone that didn't need to be there. And I'm just kind of just in shock of what's really being done. And next thing you know, she's telling my wife about certain people that I had hurt in my past, certain things that I had done, some things that nobody had ever knew that I had ever committed. And I was just, you know, kind of in like a standstill, like a deer in headlights, not knowing what to say or what to do. Literally, it's
What?
It was insane. I had never experienced anything like that, but my wife said it was standing right there and it was right next to me. So,
Wow.
you know, like I said, this is like at 4:30 in the morning. You know, next thing you know, it said it was calling me out for a couple of things, but then it said, like, "Look, I want to make a deal with you. You let me stay, I will give you fortune. I will give you wealth as long as you let me stay." I looked at that as like, this is crazy. Like, this isn't happening. This can't be real. So, you know, as time kept on going on, I kept on asking some other questions, like not knowing what I was actually talking to. I got my daughter up. She had to go to school. I had to go to work. But then my wife had said, "We'll see you at 4:30 this afternoon." She's like, "That wasn't me saying that. That was that thing saying that." So I take off, you know, I take my daughter to school. I'm going to work. You know, I'm a countertop installer at the time. I'm telling my coworker about what had just happened, not knowing what to think of this. You know, and throughout the day, I get a phone call, and then I get this job opportunity for working at a chemical plant, you know, making over, I think it was like $40 an hour starting. I'm like, there's no way. Like, it's I start consulting with, after that had happened, I started consulting with my friend's mother, who was a very, very spiritual Christian woman, very deep within the Bible, turned to the Bible for everything. And I started talking to her about, listen, I have something going on at my house. I don't know what to think. My wife's in the panic. She is texting me. She can't sleep. I have one of my other close friends going over to check on her to make sure everything is okay. She's telling me she still sees the thing. It was wild, man.
Was she a believer at that point, your wife?
No, she was atheist.
Wow. Yeah.
After this night, I'm gonna get to the point of conversion here. So after, I had talked to, my friend's mother about what was happening. She's like, let me pray about this. I'll get back to you. I'm asking her to come over, come bless the house. I'm reaching out to a pastor I knew to come by and bless the house. The stuff you would see in movies. I was, as me as a believer at the time, I believed in a God, but I didn't know what to believe. So I'm sitting here just begging somebody to come and help. And throughout the course of the day, I'm still kind of just nervous and shaken. And then my friend's mother finally got back to me towards the end of the day, and she said, I'm not coming. I'm like, what? She's like, I'm not coming. This isn't something for me to do. This is something for you to do.
Whoa.
So so it was one of those situations where she's like, this is your turning point right now. What are you going, it's like, what are you going to do? I started looking up on how to make holy water, how to bless a home, how to do all this kind of stuff. Google's an amazing thing and honestly teaches you how to do so the Catholic ways of doing it, where you grab natural water, saying a prayer over it, grabbing kosher salt, blessing it, and then saying a prayer together with it. So I took that in mind. I get home finally after all this, and I see my wife's eyes are like pin drops. They don't look natural. Like something wasn't right. And I remember there was something that, went through the course of the day talking with the spiritual woman. She said, if you want to know if it's the devil, she's like, just say this phrase, Satan, get thee behind thee. And I remember this, specifically because this is all part of, everything that happened. So I'm sitting there talking to her about, certain things. She's like, I can see things. I know things, something, I asked her about, a friend of mine that had just passed away. She was murdered. And I asked, what had happened to her. And she said to me and looked me dead in my face. She's like, this and this and this happened, but I don't feel anything. And something in me told me that like, something's not right. Something is not right. So I immediately grab an empty bottle. I run out of my house. There's a pond on the property. I run out to the property. The wind is gusting that night. I run out to the pond. I fill up the bottle with water, and I felt like something was trying to push me into that pond. Like I felt something, but managed to get the water, darted all the way back to the house, and I started setting up everything to bless the home. But, still on the fence, I looked at her and I said the words to her that, my spiritual friend had said, Satan, get thee behind thee. And I looked dead at her and said that, and she kind of scurried behind me and stood right behind me. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing? And she had replied, you told me to get behind you. So I immediately pulled out the prayers. I started praying poured out the water into a bowl, started praying immediately over there. My hands are shaking. I am scared to death. And I'm having a hard time gathering my words to be able to say all this. So by the time I blessed the water. By the time I got to the salt, I started saying a prayer, but I just could not keep going for some reason. Like I was just so terrified. But I guess my daughter was in the back room. She was laying down and she heard me praying. And, what kind of kept me going is that she said this. She said, that was beautiful, Daddy. And that gave me enough strength to finish the prayer. And as I was saying this, my wife fell to the floor and was stuck. Like just could not move. And I kept on praying and I prayed over the salt, and then I took the salt, blessed the water, and then I just threw water on her, threw water all over all corners of the house. And immediately as I did that, you know how you can feel like a heaviness in the house, just all of a sudden just lift. And I sat down with my wife after that. Her eyes were no longer like pin drops. They went back to normal. And I confessed every sin that I had ever done to anybody, just in tears, weeping. And that night we fully converted to being Christians after that, that everything, the things that go bump in the night, it was real. Everything of that nature was real. And God was the only way that set us free from that.
Wow. I mean, I'm speechless, Garrett. I don't even know where to jump. There's so many questions that run through my mind. Okay, so you're at best like a lukewarm Christian at that point, right? You just kind of know of God. You've been to church. You kind of know the drill. Didn't really experience God. Haven't seen supernatural, spiritual warfare, none of that stuff. What goes through your mind when you go through all that? Like, does it immediately like wake you up to the spiritual world? And you're like, wow, this stuff is real.
Yeah. So when that happened, we all watch horror movies. You all think it's a bunch of spooky things and such of that nature. But when you have it firsthand, especially where your parents are Christian, they take you to church and you just kind of like, oh, it's, not knowing what to think about the whole situation until you actually encounter spiritual warfare and having a dark counter with something really does wake you up. Like after that whole night, I mean, even still after that night, there were still bizarre things that took place after this. I started having very vivid dreams, encountering things in dreams, telling me things. Now, even though we had converted and started believing in Jesus Christ, we didn't start digging into the Bible as deep as we should have. We turned into kind of a different direction, thinking that there was more to all this. And this is where we fell into, I started studying like demonology, started studying, the practices of like alchemy and things like that, and why, things happened the way they did. But doing so almost seemed like it opened up a door, because I started getting attacked in my sleep. Because this wasn't the end of it. I started getting stuck in like sleep paralysis with like five shadows stuck around my bed. Fortunately, I wasn't like stuck. I was able to lift myself from it and yell at it to get out. But I knew that there was something not right about what we were learning here. And, that's when we started digging more and more into biblical scripture and knowing that, those are frowned upon, what God teaches us to, do. He finds it detestable to him. And now it kind of made sense why it opens doors and opens yourself up to those kind of things.
Yeah, it's better to learn more about God and the kingdom of heaven and the authority that you have in him versus studying the enemy. I think a lot of these testimonies that I share, it's just to wake people up that there is a spiritual warfare, because a lot of people are not even aware that there's an enemy. How can you fight somebody you don't even know exists? But the most important thing is, greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. You have the authority. Now, I know you had the holy water and salt and this and that. I personally, I have my anointed oil. When I bless the house, things happen. I mean, I don't know. God works in mysterious ways through different things. I personally, for example, I moved into a house where a witch lived, and there's stuff here. But I anointed the house with an oil, every room, blessed it. It was boom. It's like closed every portal that was open. But I'm curious about your wife. So she was an atheist, right? She didn't believe in any of this stuff.
Yeah. She is now a full-blown Christian.
When you go through something like that, my mom was an atheist. She didn't believe in anything until she had her experience. Same thing. Somebody dropped off this vodka making machine, a moonshine machine, and every night, I think midnight, my father corrected me. He said at midnight, there would come out these chariots with spirits inside that would just float all night until 6 a.m. And for days, she had, I think for a whole month or something like that, something crazy like that. And after an experience like that, my mom is the strongest believer I know to date. But I'm curious, now your walk with the Lord. So how like right after that experience, would you say your wife instantly converted, or was she still kind of like on the fence? Hey, before we get back to the episode, my father has a free gift for you. So let me explain. For those of you that don't know, my father was an underground minister in Kiev, Ukraine. My father risked his life preaching the gospel on the streets of Kiev, Ukraine at the time when it wasn't popular or allowed. And he also raised a family of 9 children in the most hostile environment. There's so many lessons that he learned throughout his journey. And for years, I've been begging him. I was saying, Father, please write a book about your life, about your journey. And he would always dismiss it as, who wants to read a book about my life? And I was like, my children, me. And so, you know what? Finally, he sat down, he wrote the book, He did it in like 1 week. I translated the book to English, and both of us, we want you to have this book for absolutely free. And the way to get this book is super simple. Go to Instagram, find me at God's Voice Today, and send me a private message with the word book, and I will automatically send you a link to get it. And now, let's get back to the episode. Enjoy.
It was instant. The moment, because what I believe she went through was almost a possession, is what she was dealing with. When she, like I said, when I looked into her eyes and when I was asking about my friend that had been recently murdered, about what happened to her, and her not having any kind of feeling towards it and such, she said that wasn't her. She said that thing had some type of attachment of some sort. Like I said, when I say she was a full-blown atheist, I mean, she had dresses that had pentagrams on them and things like that. She was with somebody prior that was a full-blown atheist that wears those kind of demonic imagery, the symbolisms that are on like rock band shirts and such.
Garrett, do you think the reason why she saw the thing was because she was more, I guess, less of a protection than you did?
I would say so. But she's a very empathetic person. Like, she has feelings towards it, but the line of work that she was in at that time, she was into like cosplay modeling and such. So she was like almost like an idol towards people. And, her ex-husband was trying to put her in a terrible position of exploitation, so to speak.
I see.
But, stepped away from it, and that's why she ended up leaving him, is because of that kind of lifestyle that he was wanting her to have to make money, and she was not for that and parted ways.
I'm curious the deal that the enemy wanted you to make with this thing. Why? I'm curious, what was that all about?
I think it was more or less to still be attached to us, more or less leading us to death, so to speak. Because honestly, demonic forces here on this plane, they'll give you whatever you want. The devil will make deals with you, give you everything you want, but it's not what you want. Really, we all truly want a relationship with our Creator, with the Lord, and
the peace and the
Christ,
joy
ultimately.
and the love, that surpasses all understanding.
There's nothing here on this earth that can compare to what Jesus Christ offers.
Absolutely.
There's nothing.
And it's like those tangible things, after a while they wear off, and then you don't have peace, you don't have joy, you don't have hope.
Right. I will say that after this encounter, I started having these very vivid dreams, and even just recently of February, I still remember this vividly, because there's a lot of things that took place after this event. Very, very prophetic dreams that I started having, and so on. Seeing of the end, like what the end times would look like, being able to see a glimpse of heaven. But the most recent one is just this February. I had a dream that I was in a white room, and there was an hourglass standing, set before me. And inside this hourglass was the world, but it was in a storm, and it was just dwindling away. And a man's voice had spoke to me and said that the end of time is drawing near to make way for the new heaven. And that I had woken up from this. And during this time, I was reading the book of Revelation. And I think in Revelation 21 that there will be a new heaven, a new earth, I believe, somewhere along those lines of scripture. I just know it was in Revelation 21, and I hadn't gotten to that point yet. So when I did actually read that passage, I looked at my life. I flipped up, I'm like, babe, it's right here. Because I woke up in the middle of the night and told her this. I kind of smacked her on her side, like, hey, I just had this crazy dream, and it was just so wild. But I just know, based on things that are happening now, on Earth now, I really do feel that we are getting closer and closer to the end time.
I just had literally a phone call before yours. Pretty sure right before. Man, I've had so many phone calls these days. Nearing 2,000 phone calls now since I started this 11 something months ago. But I just had today, and this guy had a near-death experience back in 2020. And the Lord said, you have 7 years to warn my people, and it's going to get worse and worse. And man, we all know it's near. Something, God, just look around, right? Wars, rumors of wars, natural disasters. The
world is filled with the Jezebel spirit like crazy right now. It's the prophecies are there, and they are coming true. They're coming to pass. I just want people to be ready for when Jesus Christ returns. And I know he's coming very, very soon. And I know that given this testimony, at least, I can only give it to help people see that the spiritual side of things, just stick with God. Don't go anywhere near alchemy. Don't go anywhere near the whole witchcraft thing. Stay clear of it. It's a lie. Just stick with God. Stick with Jesus Christ. You'll be fine. Follow his commandments. Be obedient. That's all he wants from us is obedience, and to have a relationship with him.
Wow, Garrett. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Sobering message. And again, man, how I know in the moment, I'm sure it didn't feel like a blessing going through all of that. But aren't you glad you got to see all of that? Now you never doubt. You never have to doubt. After you go through something like that, it wakes you up. You don't doubt God and spiritual warfare and the enemy, all that stuff. And it's easy to doubt when you don't experience things. That's why I started this podcast so people can learn from others. You don't have to go through this stuff to believe it. Just listen to Garrett's testimony. God is real. The enemy is real. And the enemy wants to destroy you. He wants you to go to hell for eternity. And it's getting late and it's getting serious.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. Well, Garrett, thank you so much, man. We'll stay in touch. By the way, before we disconnect, would you, if the opportunity came up, would you be willing to come on the main show, talk about this?
Yeah, be happy to.
Awesome. We'll stay in touch then, Garrett. Take care. God bless. Hey, if this story moved you, there's definitely more. Every day, someone new shares their supernatural encounter with Jesus. So hit subscribe and don't miss what's coming up next. And if you're ready for another powerful testimony, tap the next video on your screen right now, and I'll see you there.